Hi everyone, this is Shelby Larson, and I'm with Logan Christopher, founder and owner of Lost Empire Herbs. And we're gonna have a really, I would say, raw and intimate discussion today. So Lost Empire Herbs is an amazing company. That's why I work for them. I love them, I use them. They're part of my story of coming back from a health crisis. Logan and I go way back. And the company, I would say, while we have over 40 different herbs that we sell or different formulas, I would say the central of our products originally stemmed around hormone support.
Yeah, it was me and my two brothers were athletically focused. For me, I was doing my strongman stuff, ripping decks and cards in half, juggling kettlebells. Zane was running barefoot marathons at the time, and Cloud, he had gotten involved in CrossFit and MoveNat. And it was at that time, so we were taking herbs to really support our own performance in athletics. And that's kind of why we started the company. And so a big part of that is hormone function. Our main herb that we started with was pine pollen, but then also shilajit and ant. I think we're number 2 and number 3 there. So really that energy and everything involved with that. And as the company grew, the herbs that help with athletic performance also help with sexual performance. Yep. It really is that same energy. If we're talking about Chinese medicine, this is the Jing, the Yang Jing essentially is really that kind of driving force that can be applied to athletics or to sex. And of course the Yin Jing would be the more receptive element of that, which is in some ways more important, because if you don't have that, it's hard to hold that Yang energy.
Right, and so, we've just run the first human clinical trials proving that pine pollen raises testosterone, which there wasn't proof of that before, which is really amazing. One of our other, tonka oli is one of the herbs most proven to do that. Horny goatweed, there's several of them, sustanch. But what I really want to talk about today is that a lot of people who are our customers in our community, we have a thriving, amazing community. And a lot of them came to us because they were in the throes of pain about what the impact to your life when you have low testosterone or hormone imbalance, specifically that impacts your sex drive, your libido, your intimacy. And I am also a therapeutic facilitator on the side. And so I do a lot of therapy with couples. And so between the two of us, we have a really interesting perspective. We've each had our own crisis with hormone imbalance in this area that we can talk about, but also I think it's really important to talk about being the partner of someone that does, because the meaning making that can happen around this topic can destabilize relationships. It can destabilize self-worth, right? And so it's time to normalize the conversation, because there's a lot of things that can cause this. And that's what we really just want to talk about, is a little bit more of the emotional and intimate side effects and how to navigate that in partnership.
Yep. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with you, because you had labs that I've seen. We've made a landing page around you, which I thought was so courageous to talk about, and actually I actually don't know the answer to this question. How did you stumble upon pine pollen? Yeah,
it was just hearing about it from some other people that were talking about some other companies. And as I was doing my strength training thing, one guy started talking about hormones and how you can't really get strong if you don't have good testosterone. Yeah. So looking at that, and I feel for me, just based on my childhood and being scrawny and no confidence at all, that I had less testosterone than the average person. Yeah. Obviously, I didn't have blood tests from when I was 15 or anything like that, but lack of body hair, different things like this, which are associated with those things. And so in my 20s, as I was getting into this, I was really studying and learning all I could, and I started taking pine pollen as well as some other herbs, and just really noticing the benefits in, first and foremost, my workouts, which is what I was aiming to do, but really also in the other areas of life.
Yeah, and so you noticed a difference sexually. You were taking these for your strength training, but you started noticing a difference sexually?
Yeah, sort of. It's complicated. So I suffered from erectile dysfunction in my 20s. And of course, I didn't tell anyone about it.
No,
at
you
the
got to
time.
hide that in
Yes.
shame. Don't talk about it.
Shame has been an overriding emotion of my life.
Right.
I often joke and tell people that as a child, I was allowed to be happy or in shame.
Yeah.
Because, anger,
I resonate with that.
anger, fear, like every other emotion was just
Shameful.
don't show emotion. So I had this, and so here I was, this supposedly fit, healthy guy, the strong man, right, having ED. So it was definitely a shock to me, and a blow. And the thing that was really difficult about it, I mean, difficult in a way, was it happened sometimes and not others.
Not always.
Yeah. So in some ways it was like, I just didn't know what to do. I kind of did some research. I definitely experimented with herbs and started learning about it. And our Thor's hammer formula actually came out of that pain. Learning about that. And that was kind of my first foray into looking at testosterone, nitric oxide, PDE5, which is the enzyme that breaks down nitric oxide, which is important for blood flow. Then dopamine playing a role in there, that having herbs that worked on those different functions. And so I'd take Thor's hammer, and sometimes it worked. And a thing about Thor's hammers, you don't need to have problems to benefit from it.
For sure not.
It can just plain make sex more fun, honestly. It's great to see. Just
the people that
it's worth experimenting with.
Yeah, they talk about it. Stag swag too, right?
Yeah. If you want some fun, just go look at the reviews of Thor's hammer. We have some funny customers too, just how they share, laying the hammer down and whatnot. So that came out of kind of my own pain and my own journey, and that's the thing with it. Just like the ED, sometimes it worked real well, other times it did not.
Yeah.
And continual learning. I don't know where I first heard of it, but porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Very common.
Right.
Only growing as an issue.
Yeah, because, I kind of grew up, not super young, but normal teenage behavior, having access to porn and then internet porn. And specifically, it's the internet porn that seems to be the devious part of this.
Is it just because it's so readily available, or because it's moving visual?
It's a couple different factors. It's readily available, but it is the thing so dopamine is the reward-seeking neurotransmitter that you have it when you're just seeking for more. And this plays a role in libido and testosterone as well. But the ability to say just to click on another video, maybe this is more interesting, to just get a little squirt more of dopamine. And in some cases, people get to more and more extreme porn
and
through
then
this.
it's where your body can't get an erection anymore or orgasm without that.
It causes dopamine desensitization. So the dopamine you get from a normal sexual interaction may not be able to compete to these, in my case, women that will do whatever you want, whatever your kink happens to be. Right. So that is, and this isn't a problem for everyone. It was definitely a problem for me. And it took a while to kind of realize this, and I slowly came to the realization that it's okay, that's the problem. Then I realized I'm addicted to it, right? Because of, the trauma, stress relief, all the different things involved.
At that point, I've always thought of it as psychological addiction, but actually how you just described that, there's actually a biological, it's requiring a certain level of dopamine. I never thought about that it can cause biological addiction.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why it was hit or miss, because depending on the use of porn, how that would then show up in sexual encounters, that would be the problem. So, but it then got more twisted because, again, this was tied into sexual trauma and other stuff that if there was problems in the relationship,
right,
I would actually, and not proud to admit this, but quote unquote, get even with her by using porn so that I would show up poorly in our sexual encounters.
Yeah, because you're just
twisted,
you're
right?
trying to fight the shame. You're trying to not feel so low, and that manifests in very confusing ways.
Yeah, and power dynamics and all kinds of different stuff. So yeah, I went through a period of honestly years of trying to kick off porn, and I would stop for a period of time, but then something would happen and I'd get back on. So then I went through, without going into more and more story, but this happened over years, and now I'm happy to say I've sworn off completely, and it's no longer a difficulty, and therefore all the problems that were literally for me caused by that. There was some like secondary and tertiary triggers, like if I worked out super hard to the point like I didn't have energy left for it.
Yeah.
So that's a thing with erectile dysfunction for men is there often are multiple different causes in there. And that's, I mean, I mapped that out in my new book, Upgrade Your Erection. Mapped out 39 different triggers from the physical to porn to psychological stuff. All that is played out and how what is going to help one man is going to be completely different from another man based on what the cause is. So the symptom may be the same of erectile dysfunction, but how it's actually showing up and then therefore the things that will remedy it is going to be completely different.
Well, and that's part of what I wanted to talk about is to normalize this conversation because so many things can cause this. So I have a son who is, I want to say he's 25 now, but he's a police officer, right? And so I didn't know this, but the first responder crowd is exposed to so much stress all the time. Like I'm just imagining there's probably a lot of fight or flight going on, right? Because every 911 call could be life-threatening, you don't know. Then you're also exposed to death and destruction and heinous things. And so for the body to respond with erectile dysfunction is actually really common to, right, without any other problems, like just being exposed to that and not managing it well. So then you've got these first responders, some of the most courageous people, in our society, and their ability to acknowledge this is even harder, right? Because they see themselves as this hero, this first responder, I can handle anything, but your body's showing you that you can't, right? And so this is just, there's a lot of things that can cause your body not to work right. And it's just so disappointing that we bring so much shame, right? If your body doesn't make insulin, you don't have shame for being diabetic, right? Like it's very interesting, the shame that we've put around this topic.
And that's the thing that, basically any guy having ED, whatever the cause may be from all the different things, but then there's the layer of the psychological that gets on top of that. That then can actually become a larger thing. So certainly, I had those times like, it happened before. It's like worried about, is this going to happen again? So that performance anxiety comes in and then the shame.
And then that drives it.
Right.
So you can actually drive
it,
the eating. And that's what I talk a lot about with the people. There's a lot of the big mental component.
Well, the shame I like to think of is it's like a concrete. It really gets things stuck.
Yeah.
And that until you can get around that shame, oftentimes things won't move.
Right. And I wrote an article on shame recently, and what I kind of say about shame is shame actually, so I use myself as an example with body, right? So I've had body shame most of my life. And when you have shame, what that happens is it actually separates you. So then, like if you're using body as an example, my body's no longer me, it's the thing I'm failing. It's the thing, it becomes the thing I'm failing at, evidence of what I'm not doing right. So shame actually creates separation, right? So for like a person, like in your example, like not being able to show up sexually the way that you want to, that's separating you. Like really there's compassion there, like something's hurting, something's not right, but instead it triggers failure. This is just evidence of what I'm not, or right.
Oh, and it didn't get tied into, I'd go through shame spirals, which would often involve like porn and like other bad habits at the time, where it's just like I beat myself up over and over again.
Trying to get the dopamine back up to feel that healing. Yeah. And I mean, for me, I've also struggled with low sex drive, but it didn't come into the picture for me until I had been married for like 15 or more years. We'd always had a thriving sex life and everything just bottomed out, right? Like I think I was around like 40. Everything just bottomed out. And that's when I had the test, and they couldn't find testosterone.
They couldn't find hormones
in my body, basically. And so, but I remember, so I wasn't educated in this kind of stuff back then. And I think the cultural narrative is, first of all, if a man struggles, it somehow impacts masculinity, or it makes you feel that way. And if you're in a heterosexual relationship and the woman has the low sex drive, it's pretty much positioned that the person with the lower sex drive is the one broken. And that is a pervasive lie in our culture, right? We have an article on the website I can link in here about the Basson sexual response cycle, right? Like most people in every movie you see, they're demonstrating spontaneous sex drive, right? my husband can walk into a room, he can see me, and he can be like, ready to go. That is never going to happen for me.
Yeah.
Even when when I'm at my point where I have my highest sex drive, I don't just walk in a room and see my husband, who I love and am massively attracted to, and be like, oh, I want to have sex. I am responsive. My body needs to respond to something, even, for me to feel that. And so like understanding, I'm sharing this and I'll link you to the article, because understanding what your sexual response is, and if you're responsive or spontaneous, and it shows the whole cycle, it's really interesting once you realize that, to be able to start maybe changing how you do things, and you might see a big change in your body. But for me, I think what was so pervasive was the only story I had was that I'm broken. I'm not satisfying my husband anymore. I'm not meeting his needs.
It's your duty and responsibility. That's
right,
a big
like taking, like none. And those like 10 years before we discovered how all this works, we went through like 10 years in this. And my husband, if you guys knew my husband, he is the most thoughtful, kindest, loving, supportive man. Like, he does not take me for granted. He's so supportive. But never in that 10 years did it ever occur to us that maybe I'm just different. Like, maybe my body just works different. Maybe we need to, like, we both automatically saw it as something negative changed in me, and we need to fix that thing. Yeah. And not out of unkindness. That's what we thought was true. So then now, like you, mentally, I wanted sex less and less because I was the failure. I was broken. And if I'm broken, that can't be fixed. Yeah. Right? And so, and I'm not even thinking these things consciously, but it's like now the mental narrative made sex something that I feared or I dreaded, and I couldn't even explain it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in times when I came up on a pattern for myself where I would like purposefully like overwork myself just so I wouldn't have energy, so I wouldn't even like want sex at night because we were having difficulties and didn't want to face the rejection that would be involved in that. So yeah, it's fascinating how deep these different patterns to go. But another thing that has helped, and you were talking about the responsiveness, one of the biggest things for the sex life with me and my wife is that, and our sex life is literally the best it's ever been by like leaps and bounds, because we both done some work around the trauma and like cleared up things, and our communication is so much better.
The meaning making has changed.
But I don't think we have spontaneous sex like almost ever. Like, it's always scheduled.
Well, you have a young child.
Right,
I get that doesn't...
Yeah, and it just works for us because, I work from home and my wife's a homemaker. So during the day, like... At night, we're both tired. Like, daytime sex is way better, and that works so well for us that it has been so helpful. So now, as we're in summertime when we're recording this, girls home from school, so it's a little harder.
So when I can't get a hold of you at work now, I'm going to be like, I know what they're doing. No, but I mean, it's so true. Like, no matter what the biological reasons are, the meaning making. So what I say in my therapeutic practice a lot is whatever the pain is the pebble. Whatever it means about us or about our situation is the boulder. Yeah. Right? Like, if you were just like, oh, I'm having a biological issue, let me figure out you never would have had all of that come in. Same with me. Right? If I would have had that. So
some of it is the unknown too, because like I said, I spent like years figuring out that what the root cause, and that's something I tried to get to in this book here, is what is the root cause that is causing it, because there are so many different things that can help, whether it's with sex drive or ED or all the different things. But until you find really what that root cause is, can you really address it well? And, that root cause, you could try everything physical, but if it's a psychological thing based on some trauma that you don't even remember, that's not going to it may get short-term results at some points, but it's not going to get long-term sustainable results. Right. And that's the difficulty, especially when everything is shrouded in shame. Actually being able to ask for help, to be able to explore these things is an added difficulty to the situation.
Well, and I'm so glad you said that, because the couples that I work with in this, no matter what the original source is of the sexual dysfunction, always at some point, it reminds me of panic attacks. So if you're someone who has panic attacks, everybody who has panic attacks kind of know, after you've had a panic attack, fear of panic attack can become panic inducing,
Yeah.
right? No matter what the original source was.
It's performance anxiety with panic attacks.
And this is a similar thing, right? Like no matter what the original source was of the sexual dysfunction, after a while, it can be all about the dread and anxiety and shame that has formed around that. And a lot of that, and this is where I was also talking to one of our affiliates, Brian Ayers. He works with a lot of couples, and he says that he has noticed, I mean, this was really impactful for me because I see this in my therapeutic practice as well. So I'll use men. He specializes in men. So a man who's having sexual dysfunction oftentimes has a partner that is very understanding and loving and not judgmental, but he's so ashamed that he projects his partner being disappointed in him, or she's shameful to me. And so it actually creates a wedge in their relationship that doesn't actually exist. And I know that happened to me when I was the low one. My husband, even though we both thought I was the person who needed the thing fixed, he never shamed me about that. He never judged me. He was never unkind. But I felt like such a disappointment for him without even realizing it. My reality became that I am sexually disappointing for him. He had never said that, never has thought that. And yet I created this reality where I was avoiding him or dancing this topic because I so didn't want to disappoint him or experience how disappointed he is in me. And that didn't even exist.
And that was all your projection, right?
Yeah.
Another story, and I share this in the book, but I think I call it something like Dick as a divining rod. And it's really a reframe of this situation of ED is actually helpful. It can be a helpful signpost. The sexual dysfunction, anything.
It's a signal.
It is a signal that is trying to tell you something. For me, it's that I was burning out my system with porn. Like it's a super normal stimuli that literally my system could not handle.
And unmet trauma being satisfied with the dopamine.
Yeah, and all the different things. But this was more recent than some of that stuff. But I did have me and my wife were starting to kind of dig into our trauma and opening up the communication on, our needs and different things involved,
beautiful.
which, if you haven't figured out you have needs, you have needs.
And you're allowed to have needs and wants. That's okay.
Yeah. But in the, she ended up shutting down in there, and I'm energetic. Something I also advocate is Jaya's erotic blueprints.
I'm also energetic.
Yeah, which is, it's like the love languages, but for sex. There's energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, and shapeshifter, which is a combination of all of them. And she has a free erotic blueprint quiz. We can include the link to that.
It's really good.
It's definitely worth looking into. So I'm a sexual and energetic. So with energetic, what that means is if the energy is thrown off, it can just go like that.
Like that.
So I detected my wife kind of shutting down because we tripped over some sort of trauma. And she had picked up this pattern of, sex wasn't about her. Sex is for the boys, right? And just overriding that pattern. Yeah, it's very common in women.
I'm disappointing my husband, but no one asked, is Shelby okay?
Right. So I lost my erection, energetically. I picked that up, and had I not had this connection, had I not had the ED, I could have gone, as had happened previous times, gone into anger because she's shutting down, or just shut down myself. But instead I was able to, talk to her in that space and not go into projections or all this other stuff. And actually we were able to work through with that issue, and that kind of opened things up much more. So the ED was helpful in that case.
Yeah.
And so I want you to see any issues you're having. They are us telling us about something, right? If we can learn to listen to and it's not coming in English. It's not telling you exactly what you need to do.
Right.
You got to do some digging and talking to it to really kind of understand what is there. But if you can get to the roots, then you can really open things up in a beautiful way. And in many cases with stuff like this, what can be on the other side is even way better than things were before. You even thought you had issues, right?
Yeah, and what you said is actually really psychologically proven, and in consciousness studies too, which I'm an armchair consciousness researcher. It's my thing. But what's really interesting about what you said right there is that, the signal, your body is a signal. And so what that means inside of you already determines. So see, when it comes with shame and anxiety, people are always thinking about how to manage the symptoms of that. But in reality, if you look at it from a psychoanalytic perspective, the reason you're having the shame or the instant reaction come up is because it already means something inside of you. So if having ED as a man means you're not performing, you're less of a man, or whatever that means, that's why you're feeling the shame. If you didn't believe that, shame wouldn't come with it. So it's about understanding, and the signal part is really important because so there's a breathing technique. This is actually new for me, and for me to share a breathing technique for shame is a huge recommendation because, like Logan, shame was my home-based feeling for most of my life.
That's why we got along so well.
Yeah, I'm like, how could breath ever help this? But this does, and it's a really easy, and I found it started training my nervous system. So the pattern's really easy. It's in for 4, hold for 6, exhale for 8. But it's what you're doing. So when you inhale, the line is, this sensation is signal, not verdict. On the hold, this doesn't have to be true to exist. And the release is, and I don't have to change anything for it to soften and release. And you keep in that pattern, and what that does is the instant pattern interrupt, this feeling, this signal, this issue, it's just a signal. It's not a verdict, right? You're not making a conclusion about it. So it stops that instant meaning making. And then when you're holding it, I don't have to agree with this. This doesn't have to be true to be very real and exist right now. And then the exhales, I don't have to change or do anything for it to soften and release. That takes you out of that urgency I have to fix. And it just allows you some space to let it come up and then wash back out. That has been transformative for me when it comes to these kind of things. It has been transformative for my clients. And the breath, there's a lot of studies on breath, but I think that pattern of like, changing it. This is a signal, like you're talking about. It doesn't have to be true to be real, and I don't have to change or do anything for its release. And so I would advise that if you have like shame or anxiety issues, just because I find that really helpful. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, so we have a landing page about pine pollen based on your story. It's amazing. But a lot of women, for example, they can't send that landing page to their partner because it's all around erectile dysfunction. So their partners, instead of feeling it like this helpful thing, it can feel like an attack. Like, oh, not everybody's ready to confront and name this issue as something that they're experiencing, right? And so that's why we want to normalize this conversation.
Yeah, so my first impulse was just to deny it was even happening, right? Because you don't want to admit to yourself, because that's taking it on the identity and all the different things that go along with that. So part of my comfortability, like I think about this now, it's like for men, there's a thing like, oh, I can talk about hard things after I've solved them.
Right. After it's no longer a weakness.
It's no longer an issue,
After I'm the hero, now we can talk about this, right?
So I do reflect on that, having got to this point, because early in the days, like I literally didn't talk to anyone. I wouldn't even talk to my partner who I had happened with about it, because that
and you have a very understanding partner too. So what do you think? So obviously in all of this, I would say no matter what your situation, the meaning making you're making about it is the core driver. Even whether it's biologically driven, whether it's emotionally driven, repressed trauma, your meaning making is going to be the container that your entire experience sits in. So let's say we've addressed meaning making, like how could you model for a man, like how he could talk to this about his partner, or like how could, if your meaning making was under control, like how could your wife have talked to you in a way that maybe wouldn't have been triggering? If she wanted to present solutions or start down the research, right?
I mean, it kind of depends on the patterns and how they've played out thus far, because it is easy to go in triggers, but I'd say when it happens, like that is probably the ideal time to talk about it. I mean, it's already fresh, like it's apparent, like that's a time when you can definitely talk about it. And the key thing would be to be partners in it together of, these are things I'm looking into, this is what I'm trying, and really try to be on the same page in that. So that way it doesn't have the sort of the conflict between, because if you're not on the same page, then that leaves room for those projections and various things to come up. So just trying to get into that and have some sort of ideas, like, obviously you don't want the issue to be happening.
Right.
So just talking about it and seeing like, here's what I'm trying to do about it. Yeah.
And I think too, a way to talk about it, if you're someone who has a partner, male or female, either side, I think it's really important to not address it as something that's happening to you, right? Like,
right, it's happening to us.
Because now my sexual issues are now a pain for you. It's no longer about me. And so I feel like...
plus, when that happens to men, many women will take on like, oh, he's not attracted to me or something like that.
Right, I might lose him.
All the different things that can come on top of that. Right.
So I find being in partnership with it for sure, but I find asking like, what do you experience in those moments? Like if you were my husband, I might ask like, you know, after we're reassured and everybody knows everything's okay, just like, what do you experience when that happens? Like, what is what's happening in your body? What thoughts instantly happen? What are you emotionally experiencing? Like wanting to understand with compassion, like what your situation is. And my husband is the type of man that would have asked me that. We weren't personally developed enough to do that back during that era, nor did we have the education about sex that we have now, you know, but if he would have been like, what are you experiencing? That must be really hard. Like, do you think about this during the day? Like what, you know, what's coming up in you or what, you know, like making it more about like wanting to understand the other person as opposed to an accusation,
right?
You know, like, why don't you want to have sex more or why, you know, or because also what can happen is then we feel responsible for the other person's desirability.
Yeah.
Right.
And the key thing is communication. Communication is hard in general.
But this is very vulnerable.
So much more so in sex. So I would say even like training wheels, just working on your communication and more everyday things, being able to do that is going to be helpful because, so often, if there is like sexual trauma or whatnot, like it's not going to be a quick fix in most cases.
I've never known it to be. Right. Anyone who sat in my chair, it's not a quick fix.
It's going to take time of like working through things, and really good communication with a partner is going to be the scaffolding on which something like that can be resolved. I talk about this in the book, but if that looks like couples counseling, that can be really important, but all the different ways to really open that up, because if you can't even communicate outside of sex,
totally,
your chances of doing it inside of sex is it's not going to go well. And
one of my clients that I've seen for a couple of years around this topic, and he's had a total transformation. It's amazing. But one of the things that we identified with him is that because of the hypervigilance, right? He was basically an observer mode doing sex. Instead of being present and having sex with his wife, he's always hypervigilant. Am I staying hard? Am I getting hard? Am I going to go? Am I right? So then he's observing himself having sex instead of just having sex, and being in observer mode created.
Dissociated sex is the best kind
of sex. But
it's actually very common.
He was able to trace that very process was actually creating ED, and so we created these ways where the moment he noticed that...
If you're not in your body, you're not in your body.
Well, also, in that moment, sex is about his ability to perform. It's not about her pleasure, it's not about his pleasure, it's not about connection, it's all about... Please do what you're.
A good way to get out of your head is to focus on them.
Right, exactly. And so, we developed these ways where the moment he noticed that, he would bring himself back into presence, and then over time, that stopped happening.
That just became the natural. That became habit.
Right, because I think what's really not talked about enough in mental and emotional health is that people always think they're healed when they feel better. But my experience is that's not how it works 99.9% of the time. You have this awareness now, you have this cognitive knowing, but your nervous system is still going to scream. I personally think this is the hardest part of healing, is when you know, okay, that's a wound or that's a trauma or that's a this, and it still goes off with all the severity, and while your body's screaming at you, you have to say, when I was in a balanced place, I knew that this was not the case, so I'm going to make a choice as if it's not. And bringing yourself back to a place of safety is when your nervous system goes, oh, maybe that's not so significant anymore. That's how, then more layers of that's what actually makes you feel the healing. And so people, I think, get discouraged. I'm going to be like this forever. I've done all the training, but it actually takes doing it.
Well, I'm reminded, so if there's any sort of sexual trauma, and it doesn't, which who doesn't, just about, it's often going to cause dissociation. And I know for both you and me, like, we had to become friends with dissociate, had to actually like realize, oh, I'm dissociated now, which is the same for the client you were just talking about, right? Actually understanding that, because in the beginning, especially, you're not going to be able to operate with any sort of resources out of that place. So becoming familiar with what that actually looks like, I'm triggered right now, like noticing what that is, that's going to be really helpful for this thing. Because I didn't actually think of that so much, but with ED, just dissociation, that is so often going to be what is in play with the various psychological triggers that can cause that.
And it goes back to the only reason you're dissociating is because what this thing means about you or about your relationship is so scary and hard that your mind and nervous system has to create a little bit of space to cope with it. So it all goes back to what it means about already inside of you. And so that's where I say people start, is self-acceptance. Having erectile dysfunction or having low sex drive as a woman doesn't mean you're broken. What is broken is your perception of what that means about you and in your relationship. That's the hard thing.
I'll mention that women have as much erectile tissue as men do. So women have erectile dysfunction as much as men do. It's just not apparent for obvious reasons, right? But this is going to contribute to lack of ability to orgasm, lack of pleasure in sex. So a women can still have penetrative intercourse with complete erectile dysfunction, whereas a man cannot.
Absolutely.
So this is important. So all these different things are playing a role in women. It's just not as apparent.
Right, and that's the thing, is that we have herbs that help, right? There are all kinds of therapeutic things that you can do, but at the end of the day, you can actually be in full biological health. You can be in full hormonal balance and still have erectile dysfunction because of the meaning making that happens inside you.
I want to mention, because I've seen this a pattern that's apparent from just like reviews, like a person tries our Thor's hammer and saw, another thing that just doesn't work. If you are jumping around through 17 different supplements for sexual function and none of them is working, that means a supplement is not going to fix what is going on for you. And that could be definitely psychological stuff, could be even deeper rooted physical stuff. So one of the most difficult causes of ED to come back from is very often prostate surgery or other surgeries, because this can just shred, unfortunately, like the nerves involved in that, as well as the blood vessels. So the nerves tend to be worse. Diabetic neuropathy can be another thing. So, if your toes are going numb, that's another appendage there that blood flow is not getting in, and the nerves can be deadening from the various things that cause that. So the further things have gone, this is true of both physical and psychological stuff. The further things have gone, the kind of harder it is, the longer it's going to take to unwind them, to get to some sort of remedy. Like, psychological stuff can change in an instant, but that's usually after 3 years of work.
Or you can have the cognitive awareness that your body is actually resistant to change, and that's by design, right? Like, if our body just changed with every whim we had, that would not be healthy, right? So once you understand something cognitively, it takes the body's still going to trigger. This has been dangerous. This has been scary for a long time. I know you think it's okay, but you've thought we're safe before, right? Like, the nervous system needs to learn on its own. And so we just need a lot more compassion. It's time to take the shame out of erectile dysfunction. Like I said, my son is a police officer. It is a prevalent issue among first responders because of the traumatic things they're exposed to all the time. There's just a lot of things that can cause this, and it's time to just talk about how to fix it. And there's a lot of natural ways to do it. There's a lot of not natural ways to do it. You guys can do your thing. We're more in the natural crowd. But above all of that, self-acceptance. This is signal, not verdict. I don't have to do anything to change it. Just self-acceptance and compassion. I've never met someone if healing is possible without self-compassion, I've never seen it. I haven't seen it.
Right. Yeah.
And why is that so hard? Self-compassion
Yeah.
is so hard. Like, how long did it take you
stuck
to
with
have
ourselves
compassion? Yeah.
in our heads. And yeah. So yeah, the clients I've worked with, it usually is a combination of different things, because in some cases it is real clear as far as what is the root cause, right? And I lay out a big questionnaire. You go through that, and it may be able to help pinpoint you to what is the thing. But often it'll be like, there's some of this, there's some of that at a roll. So in those cases, it's often going to be a combination of working with some herbs and supplements, some lifestyle stuff, so maybe some tools. Definitely, even drugs can play a role there. Like I've never used the ED drug, but I do see they have a role in, at least if they work, that tells you something. So each remedy, whether it works or not,
gives you information.
That is additional feedback for the path, the journey that you're on. So looking at all these different things, and with compassion, continuing forward, that is ultimately, like I said, for me, that's so many ups and downs. It took several years for me to fully resolve the issue. I consider it fully resolved now.
But you also changed your labs. Like, you had before and after of your testosterone labs. Like,
I mean, my testosterone was never actually super low.
But you raised it, though.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But testosterone was not the key thing for me.
That's what I mean. So you raised it.
Yeah.
So
I explored that as a thing. It's like
the herbs worked, and you still had issues.
Yeah. Because until I got to the porn being the key issue for me, as it is for many other people, but not everyone, until I solved that, which that took years. Then it was still an issue. So nothing else was really important enough to be a needle mover compared to that issue, right? But that was tied into all the psychological stuff that was driving the addiction, that caused the shame spirals and the use of that. And even though I'd be on, abstinent for a while, then going back to that, and to clear up the psychological, the causes of that, the trauma, the surface sexual trauma and whatnot, that was a journey which was probably still layers that I'll come around to. But that was multiple years.
But I actually want to talk about this book for a minute. So this is the first time I've seen it in print. This is like a legit book. Mm-hmm. But what I
meant to write something short, and it came out long.
I didn't realize. And what I love about this, because I've obviously seen the copy and stuff for it. So basically, this book there's 39 root causes, right? So are you even addressing ED from the right angle? But what I love about this, I know you mentioned the questionnaire, but you actually built an AI around this book as well, right? Yeah. Where people can put that questionnaire in there, and it will help. So there's actually. We can put a link to it in this video, but he built EDBot. Is that what we call it? The EDBot?
Well, right now, I offer that as a bonus for people that pick up the book. So this, not a lot of people, and the book is not designed to really be read cover to cover. Sure, you can do that, but it's meant to give you kind of the baseline, then guide you through this questionnaire. Based on the questionnaire, it's showing you the triggers of the ED, and based on those triggers, you then have the 10 pathways with a variety of different remedies to help you fix it. And so the AI bot that I built is trained on this material. So you upload the questionnaire, your answers to it, in the current iteration that it is now, and it's going to kind of analyze all that and say, here's your likely triggers, here's the remedies you should look for.
And what I like about this too is like the concept of upgrade your erection. Like, I don't know a man that doesn't want to upgrade his erection. Like, I don't think that's something that only someone with ED wants, right? And the solutions that are in this book, like you said, people take like Thor's hammer just to enjoy sex more.
I take it every once in a while, just for fun, because it tends to make orgasm more powerful for me. And then honestly, there's like more energy for sex.
Right. Yeah. And women can take it too, by the way. It works for women too. But what I like about this, especially if you're someone who has a partner that's struggling with this, that has a lot of shame, I feel like this is a much easier thing to give them, because it's again, you don't have to read it to cover. They fill out the questionnaire in their own privacy. They can go to this AI in their own privacy. We don't see anything that goes into the AI, and explore the different things that can create that. And that may help strip out some of the shame, because there's so many reasonable reasons this can be happening, right? And so I just feel like this is an easier tool to give to someone struggling in that, but that may not trigger as much shame, and give them a private way to explore that with an AI that is trained around this information.
Yeah.
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 I feel like it's a gentler, you know, I don't know. I just it's trying to be compassionate and gentle to the state that people are in when they're struggling with this. So.
Yeah.
So what I would just invite you to say is, please, if you want to talk about this or you want information, like you can always email us in. We're known at Lost Empire Herbs. I think we have the best customer care.
Yeah.
We all respond personally, you know, to people who write us personally. And yeah, there's just a lot of ways to navigate this. We have a lot of herbs. You know, if you want to have this conversation or you want to share your experience, especially if maybe we could share it with other people with or without your name, I think we have a big mission to want to normalize this conversation, take out the shame. Yeah.
And just help people overall. And sexual health is considered part of our birthright, right?
Yeah.
Because if it weren't for sex, we would not be here.
Right.
kind of a necessary component. So in my opinion, you know, although people have different levels of sex drives, that's definitely natural. Like a thriving sex life just is and ought to be available for people, right? And that doesn't mean it's easy or won't be things that can stand in the way, but it's definitely a possibility, right? But to get to that, especially if you have gone through trauma and some difficulties of different things, it's going to take some work. But doing that with compassion, doing that with the proper support is going to make that journey so much easier.
Like my marriage is mind-blowing. I mean, I've always had a great marriage, but I would say working through the low sex drive that I had, and I'm married to a man with a very high sex drive, the level of connection, even that deepened through compassionately working through that. But honestly, I was the barrier. He was never not compassionate. I'm the one that had so much shame and made it difficult. Right. And so once I had some self-acceptance and was like, wait, maybe I'm not broken, that opened the ability to have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Shame and sex often come together. So
super fun.
So hopefully you've enjoyed this, learned a few things. If you have additional questions, be sure to drop us a line. Let us know in the comments.
Thanks.